Hello, everybody. It is good to see you this evening. Today, we're going to be talking about raising chickens, backyard chickens. So, an exciting. An exciting topic. So, I'm having a little difficulty here. So, hold on one second. There we go. Now we're good to go. So, we're talking about raising chickens this evening. If you have any questions, you can drop those in the comments right there. And I would love to answer any questions that you have about raising chickens. We're going to get started by brand new chicken owners, people that are just really new to maybe you want to get a little more self-reliance. You want to be able to create some own food, your own food. Chickens is the great way to start that. The best way to get involved in chickens is to just take the plunge. I know that it's scary sometimes having your own livestock or having your own animals, and it's a little intimidating, especially when we don't know what to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit different approach, and I want to help you start by asking three basic questions. And once you answer those questions, you're going to be able to take that next step in raising chickens. So the first thing we want to ask ourselves is, what is the purpose of raising chickens? Now, maybe you just want a pet, and chickens make great pets. So if that's your goal, then just go buy any chicken. It doesn't matter. Any chicken at all is going to work. So that'll be great for you. But if you want layers, if you want meat chickens, if you want both, if you want dual purpose birds, that is a completely different story. And you need to be able to answer that question. What is the purpose of the chickens? Um, the thing you have to determine is, if you want layers, you need to get a breed that's a layer. We're going to walk through that. Also, if you're looking for a meat chicken, you need to get something that is a meat chicken, and don't just default and say, hey, I want both. I want all of it, because you're losing some things by going to both. Um, what kind of food do chickens eat? Yeah, that's a great question, and we're going to get there. But the best feed for chickens is going to be a store-bought balanced food. It's what you want for your chickens. So that's the best thing, and you can get those from the feed and seed stores. Tractor Supply, you can purchase it online, and it depends on what stage of growth. So if you're looking at a that chick starter, you're going to be looking at something in the 20% protein. And then as they grow, once they get to that layer stage, you're going to be looking at something more like a 12% protein. And of course, 12% protein food is going to be cheaper than chick starter at 20%. The greater level of protein you can get in them early, the faster they're going to grow. So once we answer that question about meat chickens, layers, or dual purpose birds, that's both. And what I will say is, don't just default and just say, hey, I want both, because a dual purpose bird is going to do both, but it's not going to do either as well as a chicken breed that is designed or designated to do that. So there are layers that are specific layer birds that are going to give you over 300 eggs per year. That's an egg laying machine. So over 300 eggs per year. The best dual purpose bird that you're going to get is probably going to be somewhere in the 250 range. They may creep up to 280, but you're going to be in that range. So lower. Also, if you're looking for a dual purpose bird for meat, they're not going to grow as fast as a specific bird that is bred for meat production. So your Red Ranger or even a hybrid, and we're going to get into that question in just a moment too, like a Cornish cross. Now, when you talk about those things, if you don't think you're ever going to have the heart to look into those little black beady eyes of a chicken and be able to dispatch that bird in order to eat it, then you don't want to buy a dual purpose bird. You want to get a layer. So when you answer that first question, do I want layers? Do I want meat birds? Or do I want a dual purpose chicken that will give me a good sense of both, or a good source of both? Once you decide that, you can move on to the next question. Is that, am I going to raise chickens generationally? So when we okay, I got another question, a couple of questions here. What's the best kind of chicken to raise in a small space? That all depends on these goals that we're going to set here. You have to determine what your goals are. We always start with our goals and then we work from there. I think that that's the best way to do anything, is to set your goal and then work your plan backwards. Chickens are going to live in a relatively small footprint, so they don't take a whole lot of space to grow. As far as inside coop space, you're looking at 3 square feet per chicken. Outside, you're looking at 8 square feet per chicken. If you can hit those basic numbers, those minimum numbers, you're going to have happy birds. So that's so any of them you can really raise in a small space. And if you live in tight quarters and you live in a place where your neighbors may complain, just remember that if you want to layer, you don't have to have a rooster for chickens to lay eggs. That's you just don't. That's a misnomer, that you have to have um, a rooster for chickens to lay eggs. They'll lay eggs without a rooster. But now, if you're going to produce offspring, you've got to have a rooster. But you don't need that just for them to simply lay eggs. How old are layers when they start laying? You're probably looking at somewhere from 16 to 22 weeks, depending on the breed. So no earlier than 16 weeks, but most of them have started laying by 22 weeks. So now that we've established if we want laying chickens or meat chickens or dual purpose chickens, are you gonna are do you want chickens that are you going to raise chickens generationally, not chicken generations? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, I mean, not human generations. We're talking about chicken generations. So, am I going to take my G1, my generation of chickens that I have right now? Am I going to take that chicken and then produce new generations? So, am I trying to create a self-sustaining process, or a self-sustaining system with my chickens? If that's the case, then you're going to lean towards a heritage breed chicken. A heritage breed chicken, the one thing that you need to understand about heritage breeds, or you need to know, is that a heritage breed is going to be a chicken that breeds true. So if you put a Rhode Island Red rooster and a Rhode Island Red hen together, you're going to get a Rhode Island Red chick. But if you take two hybrid chickens, now here's a lot of confusion also in the world about hybrids. Hybrid is not genetically modified. There are no genetically modified chickens. Um, Genetically modified means that there is a different species spliced into the DNA. We see that in grain and ag production as far as vegetables go. But even in that, we, as the basic consumer homesteader, don't get our hands on GMO seeds. Almost everything we buy is going to be non-GMO, because we can't meet the minimum threshold for purchase for genetically modified seeds. So genetically modified and hybrid are not the same thing. Now, if you are not going to raise those chickens generationally, in other words, you're going to buy new layers every couple of years, you're going to buy a new set of meat birds every single time you want to dress and you want to have a butchering of birds, then hybrid is the way to go. And the reason is because if that's the system you're going to use, hybrid birds give you what's called hybrid vigor. There's two different breeds that come together for a particular trait. With meat birds, it is a fast growing, and then like the Cornish cross, which is a hybrid chicken. That Cornish cross is not only just designed to grow to weight quickly, but it's also designed to have more breast meat than any other chicken, so that's the part that most people want to eat. So you have a great deal of that meat, and they grow to, you can grow a hybrid, our Cornish cross chicken can grow to full butcher weight in 8 weeks. After you've been doing it a while, you can probably get them there in 7 weeks. And I'm not even talking about raised in the industrial complex. I'm not even talking about raising those chickens with all of the the growth hormones and things that they give them. These birds are just designed to grow. Like I said before, layers can lay over 300 eggs per year. Hybrid chickens can lay over 300 eggs per year because they have been bred. These two different breeds of chickens have been brought together for the purpose of creating a very high output in a particular trait or particular gene. So when we begin to ask ourselves, if you're going to raise chickens generationally, you want to be self-sustaining, you want a regenerative system, you're going to lean towards a heritage breed chicken because you know what you're going to get. If you put a hybrid rooster and a hybrid hen, they're going to revert back at least one generation, maybe two generations from their breeding. So you're going to get some kind of, I don't even know what to call it, a mutt chicken. You don't really know what you're going to get because it's going to revert back generations and you don't really see that they breed true. So you're going to lose that hybrid vigor. And often you're going to get some very negative traits in those offspring. So first of all, we're going to choose layer, meat, or dual purpose. Then we're going to decide if we want hybrid or heritage. And then when we are really talking about first getting into that chicken business, then we need to understand that there's a couple of different ways to get started. So one way to get started is by buying chicks. And this is the way most people choose to start. They walk into Tractor Supply, they walk into a feed and seed, they make a purchase from an online hatchery or at a flea market or at a local farm, and they bring home chicks, day-old chicks. They put them in a brooder and they brood them up. And that is, for me, if you're going to do it, that's the way to do it because you learn all of the life stages. You go through and learn how all of those different stages work, and it's very fulfilling as you see the chickens grow. And listen, they develop their own little peculiar personalities, each bird, and it's just a very fun process to watch those chickens grow. So you start with chicks. But there is another way, especially if you want layers. Now, there are no point of meat birds, but the others, you can buy what's called point of lay birds. So they're at the age where they're already going to be laying eggs. When they start laying eggs, at that point, you start getting a return on your investment. Now, the difference is chicks are very cheap, but you have much more mortality in chicks and there's greater input costs. So you've got to buy that feed. You've got to do all of those things. And as you do those things and as you buy that feed, all of that is a cost associated with raising chickens. But point of lay birds are going to be much more expensive at initial purchase. Some point of lay birds are $75 to $100 per chicken. And that is quite a more substantial that's more substantial investment than buying brand new baby chicks. As a matter of fact, you're not going to have that much into the input when you raise your own chicks, even when you factor in mortality. And that's why these birds are cost that much, is because you have someone who really knows how to get them to that next age of life. They take all of the loss and mortality. They pay those initial expensive fee because that starter feed costs more to get them up to age. So that's why you're paying more, but you start getting a return on investment immediately. And that is what some people want. They want to put a bird in a coop and run. They want to walk out there in a couple of days and there be eggs in the nest box. And if that's what you want, then point of lay may be the way for you to go. It's just going to take you a while to recoup that initial investment. So that's setting our goals. We need to be able to answer those questions. We need to be able to answer whether we want a layer, whether we want a meat bird or a dual purpose bird, heritage or hybrid breed. And then we want to be able to decide whether we want to start that process from chick all the way up to laying, or if we want to buy a point of lay bird. Once we have that, once we've set those goals and we've laid that initial foundation, then we're ready to take the next step and start really trying to decide what is the right chicken breed for us. And what I want to just let you know that I have a resource that will walk you through this step by step over at preparedtolive.com/homestead chickens. You can get an ebook. It's on sale right now for $7. You can grab that ebook over at preparedtolive.com/homestead chickens, and you can purchase that ebook right there. And it talks about the basics of raising chickens. There is some charts in there that will give you that basically let you know which breeds are meat birds, which ones are layers, which ones are dual purpose, lets you know how many eggs they lay, lets you know how many weeks to grow out weight. So that is part of that ebook, that resource. So if you want to grab that, you can go over to preparedtolive.com/homestead chickens, and that resource is for you right there. Let me see if I have I don't see any other questions that have come in, but I do want to hang out with you for just a minute. If you have a question, you can drop it right there in the comments, and we would love to answer that question. And listen, we're on multiple platforms, so you can watch us just about anywhere. You can watch us on Instagram. You can watch us on Twitter. You can watch us over on YouTube. And we really do want to be able just to help you in your journey towards sustainability and self-sufficiency. The world is not the same place we used to live in, and things are getting harder. It's getting harder to get things. Things are costing more. So there has been a shift towards becoming more independent when it comes to the food supply. So I certainly want to be able to to help you with that and give you the resources and equip you in every way we possibly can to be able to get you on the right track with raising chickens or your garden or whatever it is that you may want to do in self-sustainability. And we're going to be going live periodically in the evenings and in the afternoons just to help you answer these questions. So if you don't follow us, go ahead and follow us on any of the social medias. Also, go over and check out our website at preparedtolive.com. There's some resources there, and we're really starting to build that website up and introduce more resources right there. We have a full video digital training course on raising chickens. It'll be released in about 2 weeks. And that is going to, there's over 2.5 hours of live teaching there. There is going to be some one of a kind only can be found on that digital course. Some exclusive resources there for you, a more in-depth a breed table than what you're getting with the Homestead Chickens ebook. But please check that ebook out. I believe you're going to find a lot of resources, and it's going to answer a lot of your questions and give you some peace of mind about going ahead and taking that first step towards raising your chickens. So I have another question that's come in here. It says, do chickens lay eggs year round, and how do you plan for their laying patterns? That's a fantastic question. Chickens don't normally lay year round. They have to go through what's called a molt. That's when they will lose feathers and grow new feathers, and that takes a high level of protein. So almost all of their energy goes into replenishing those feathers as they go through a molt, and they will fall off laying. Now they will continue to lay, but they will not lay at the same pace or at the same rate. And that normally happens with the sun cycle. So as you get less daylight hours, that triggers the molt in chickens. So even if you keep them warm, if you don't give them artificial light, and a lot of people do put artificial light in the coops, so that will keep the chickens laying longer. And as a result, those chickens will sometimes skip the molt, and they will keep going right on through the molt, and they will lay just like if it was the warmth. I don't do that, and the reason is because that's a natural break that the chickens need. And we want our chickens to be chickens. We want to have happy animals. I believe the less stress creates a better product for us, whether it's meat or whether it's eggs. So when those chickens go into molt, you just have to realize that you're not going to get the eggs. The way to plan for that is that you gather those eggs and you preserve those eggs, and you can preserve eggs many different ways. Um, you can glass the eggs, which is covering the eggs with mineral oil, which keeps them from spoiling. Putting them in the refrigerator will keep them longer. You can also freeze dry the eggs. So if you have a freeze dry, like a Harvest Right freeze dry machine, you can freeze dry and powder those eggs, and they taste just as fresh. When you do it yourself, when you process them and you do them. Now listen, I don't cook them first. You do the raw eggs, and then when you rehydrate them and scramble them or whatever, they taste just like eggs that you just cracked open and scrambled. So that's how you kind of prepare for that pattern, but it's all based on light. Even if you keep your chickens warm, you don't give them light, they're still going to go through a molt. So yeah, they will fall off. And then about the second year, their egg production is going to cut back. So after 1 year, the chickens are going to start laying less eggs than they did. So figure your 100%, and then in year two, you're going to start getting about 90%, and then year three, it's going to really drop, and you're probably going to get 60 to 65% of the production that you were getting. So what you have to do is create that system so that you're introducing new birds to make up for that fall. So if you're going to lose that 10 to 20% in production, you need to add enough birds to make up for that difference if you are trying to hit a target goal of eggs. And that is something that we also have resources for as well, is figuring up how much food you actually need on hand. Really at Prepared to Live, what we do is consulting, coaching, training, resources in both the homesteading and prepping arena. We believe that both of those things need to fit together to create a complete system for sustainability, and to be able to survive. What's the lifespan of layers? Chickens can live 7, 8 years, but each year they're going to drastically decline in their production. So what you have to decide, is, are you going to allow that bird to live out its life when it's only taking from you and not giving anything back? So a chicken is going to reach a point where its output is less than its input. So it's costing you more money to feed that chicken than they're giving you eggs back. When you get to that point, you have to decide if you're going to allow that chicken to stay in your system or not. And that's just a preference that's just something you have to decide. It's a preference that you choose. You just have to decide whether, hey, and at 2 years old, processing that bird looks a lot different than a layer. So you're not going to take a 2-year-old hen who's been laying eggs, or a 3-year-old hen, or a 4-year-old hen that's been laying eggs for most of her life, and then just process her and make her fried chicken. She's going to be tough. She's not gonna be very desirable to eat. The best thing, I guess the only thing to do with a chicken that age would be stew meat. So it's going to be a chicken that you're going to boil down. But you can take those chickens and you can create chicken stock from them. You can create stew meat from them. So that's just what you have to decide if you're going to allow those chickens to live out their complete life, or if you're going to have a goal that at 3 years, I'm going to completely cull them out of my system and replace them with new chickens. Because after year two, you're going to start seeing a decline in their output. So that's kind of that's something that you have to decide as you build these systems. And those are things that you need to decide ahead of time. You need to, especially if you have kids, those kids need to know what's coming. They need to know that, hey, these are not pets. This is part of our self-sustainable. This is part of our food system. A lot of times we don't want to do that, but when you know the place of the animal, when you know its purpose, when it gets to the time for it to fulfill that purpose, then it's a natural part of the progression, because we have actually allowed that chicken to fulfill its role, and then it sustains us even further than it did before. So I'm gonna, if you don't have any other questions, I'm gonna have time to answer one more question. If you've got one more question, I want to answer it, and if you have that, that would be fantastic. If not, that's okay, because we're going to be live again in just a few days. So be looking for that, and we're going to take that next step. Listen, we talked about goal setting. In our next Raising Chickens Live, we're going to talk about taking that next step, and that next step is actually going to be how to choose the right breed for you, how to choose that right breed to help you meet those goals. So we're going to be talking through that in depth. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It has been fun. You guys have an absolutely amazing night, and I will see you in a few days. And until then, just keep growing and learning, because that is the purpose of the homestead life. We'll talk to you guys later. Prepared to Live is out.